strap in, enjoy the ride. Lights on with Hazel as your guide. Lights on, strap in, enjoy the ride. Lights on with Hazel as your guide. Lights on, strap in, enjoy the ride. Lights on with Hazel as your guide.
My name is Hazelmillichamp, and this is an episode of Light On, where I spread my light a little wider than Leeds. And remotely connecting with me today is Miranda Keeling. She is an author. She does all sorts of things, actually, but she is here to tell me mainly about her brilliant book, The Year I Stopped to Notice. We chat about her inspiration for the book, her theatre, radio and TV work, winning the Norman Beaton Award, and much, much more. Have a listen. On this episode of Light On, as part of the Light On Leeds podcast, I am talking to Miranda Keeling. Hello, Miranda.
Hi.
Thank you so very much for joining me today. Miranda, you're here to talk to me about your book called
Yes.
The Year I Stopped to Notice. So how did that come about?
This book has been kind of gestating, as it were, for a long time, about 10 years really. It's the material for it. I have been writing on and off, mostly on, most days, I'd say, for years and years and years. And it was really Kira Jameson from Icon Books seeing all of that material online and suggesting that we make a book out of it that kind of was the culmination of the process.
And can you describe for people what the Year of Noticing is about? How is it formed? What can they expect?
So the year, excuse my throat, the year I Stopped to Notice is it's a travel diary, really. So it's lots and lots of mini travel diary entries all together. And when I was writing it, I didn't realise that's what it was, because I was walking around the world and just observing what was around me. And then it was only when we were sort of looking through it that we realised, oh, okay, so because I'm doing that, I'm taking you, the kind of viewer or reader, with me on those journeys, on those buses, down those streets. And so what you'll get is it's quite a lean book in a way, I'd say. It's got, it's each page has maybe 1 to 3 observations on it. And they're just little snippets of things that I've noticed. So they're a conversation on a bus that I've overheard, or I don't know, something just really, really tiny, like noticing some lavenders out in a garden on the way. And each piece is very small and very kind of, I'd say subtle. They're not all subtle. Some of them are ridiculous. But together they form a fabric of, I think, just humanity, really.
Yeah, definitely. And so there's lots. It's kind of like, it's all like little tiny things, but there's something about the way that you have sort of took them, wrapped them up, and then presented them that makes them really beautiful. Even really sort of things that you could imagine might seem quite kind of mundane, just I think just become elevated in a way.
And I wonder, I think especially in the book, because the book design is really beautiful, which I love. And it wasn't until I held it in my hand that I understood what we had made. The material has an elevation about it, and it's the kind of got an enhanced, a sense of the beauty in the everyday, right? I guess is the way I would describe it. But then when you hold the book, it's got like a weight to it, and the cover is so beautiful, and the illustrations are so beautiful, and so all of that combines to make this everyday descriptions something kind of extraordinary. And I keep thinking of jewel-like. I'm not sure exactly what I mean by that, but I guess compact and bright.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. It's a beautiful book. And talking of the beauty of the book, when you were tweeting your little nuggets that you'd found, you actually had people send you their artistic representations of them.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I still have that all the time. And I love that almost entirely. When somebody sends one, they don't realise that anyone else has done it. They're just responding to something. So I'll write, the first one I received was this woman who was on the tube, and she was wearing this red cape, and she was reading a book about tigers. And this artist sent me a drawing of that that image, and he's done. And this is what happens so much, Hazel, is that they'll add a little detail.
Yeah.
That there's a word for it. Is it anthropomorphic? When you
Yes.
make so he's given her a real tiger tail. And then in the book there's one that was also one that was sent to me by Lucy Power, the artist, and I describe the woman as looking like a bird, and she's just gone full kind of drawn her as a bird-headed lady. So yeah, the artists, they add something else, something completely different, and they don't do it because I asked them to.
Yeah, that must have been lovely, getting those spontaneous pieces of art. And also I think it kind of speaks to how each little entry, you can visualize them so well, and I think it's wonderful that people went away and then created the pictures of what you created in their minds.
And it's funny because I read again for some reason because I read the article today. Anyway, that was it. The observation you had where you were sitting behind a man on a bus and he had a fruit kiwi sticker on the back of his head that had obviously got, I guess, caught there. And then you start thinking about his head as a kiwi fruit. And people send me their observations of stuff quite a lot. But it really does. It's amazing how when you look at something from one particular angle, you'll see something really funny in it.
Yeah, definitely. And I really love the one that about the man that you were watching struggling for such a long time to put up a sign. And then when he finally gets the sign up, it says team building.
Yeah. Which is nice, isn't it? Because it's funny, but it's also kind of sad, And I really like that juxtaposition. I think it's really interesting. Not sad as in, he's devastated, but it's that thing of, oh, here we go. We all recognise this moment, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of the appeal of the book, is that these are all little things that you will have seen something similar happen. And then I bet it must be nice for you to imagine that then you've sent forward all these people who have been reading your book, and then they'll perhaps start to notice their own small little nuggets of beauty that they see as they're riding around on a bus or on a train.
Yeah. I mean, they send them all the time. This morning I got one from a guy who said he was in the park and he saw this dog that was a really unusual looking combination of two quite different breeds. Anyway, and he stopped to talk to the owner about it, and he said, this is a really unusual combination. She just said, accident. I mean, who knows what that means exactly? What she let him off the lead for a bit too long, or I don't know, whatever. But it's so I think we all. Do we all notice these things anyway? It's a good question. Don't know.
Yeah, I think some people perhaps more than others, but I think definitely your book, if you didn't notice before, it would make you have a little think about things a little deeper when you see them. And you spoke before as well about it kind of gives us all a connection because we can all see these kind of things every day.
And thinking back to the kiwi-headed guy, you just wrote it and I just read it, but I could draw it. I mean, not as well as the artists who send stuff to me, but I've got a very strong visual image of that man and almost the bus he was on, even though, of course, none of it's real for me. It's really interesting. I think one of the things I'm thinking of doing actually is doing a sort of thing where I make an observation and then I ask people to send in their visual interpretations of it.
Yeah,
it'd be really interesting to see the different ways that people imagine it.
Yeah, it really would. And Lucy Power, who illustrates your book so beautifully, she was one of the artists, wasn't she, who sent you in her interpretation of your writing?
Yeah. So Bird Lady is that was the first one she did, I think. Yeah. And she sent me a private message on Twitter and said, I've just done this drawing of your she calls them paintings. They're paintings, actually. Sorry. I've just done this painting of your something you wrote. Can I post it to you? And I was like, yeah, sure, great. And this incredible picture comes through the post, which is now on my wall. So then, when we wanted it for the book, I had to have it scanned and kind of so it could go in. But yeah, I just find the generosity of that quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Because it's like you've put a little something out into the world, and people have responded to it so positively.
Yeah.
And you must be absolutely thrilled because you've got some brilliant quotes on the book. So you've got one from Philip Pullman, one from Neil Gaiman. Yeah. How did you feel when you got those?
Amazing. A friend of mine recently said, they haven't actually read it, have they? I was like, yes, they have read it. Basically, Well, the publisher said to me, we're going to be doing our thing, but do you have any? Have I told you this already? I don't know.
No,
But
yeah.
they said, do you, what can you use your network to promote the book? Who can you get a quote from? And I sort of said, well, I don't really have a network at all. I mean, I don't feel that I know kind of famous people, or if that's a funny word to use. And then I realised that they followed me on Twitter, and then it was just mad, really. I just contacted them directly because I'm fans of their work anyway, so could genuinely start with, I'm a huge fan of what you do.
Yeah.
And I just said, would you like to read it? Because even having them read it, I think would have felt quite wonderful.
Yeah.
So when the quotes came back, it was so nice. And there was a really nice thing that happened as well, which was that there was a lot of talk of having to put on the front of the book based on her popular Twitter account. And I really wasn't keen on having that. I wanted to not alienate all of the people in the world who don't engage with Twitter.
Of
The
course.
minute you see a Twitter book, if I see a TikTok book, I'm not going to pick it up because I don't use it yet. Sorry,
Yeah.
TikTok, I may well do. But, so as soon as those quotes came in, we were able to say, we don't have to reference Twitter on the front cover. We can use the quotes instead, because Twitter is a medium by which I reach people, but it's not it doesn't have to be there. Well, does it? It's certainly been a great medium to kind of put my work out there, but it's not what the writing is.
Yeah, definitely, of course. And apart from writing your amazing book, Miranda, it's quite difficult for me to pin down exactly one thing for you, because you've done all sorts of things. So have you always been involved in sort of drama, theatre, TV?
Yeah.
How did it all begin?
I feel like, so I've got really distinct memories of when I was really little with my brother. So we must have been like, I don't know, 5 and 3, maybe a bit older than that, thinking about him engaging with it properly. But we used to put on plays for our parents, and we would draw these little programs, and I feel that I've always wanted to tell stories since I can ever remember. But it wasn't until relatively recently I started making the connection between every facet of what I do and telling stories. And then the other thing that I think links them is a real obsession with detail.
Yeah.
And a tiny, a real sense of that the small things matter.
Yeah, definitely. And your book definitely shows that. So
I think with acting, I was really, really into the details of characters. That sounds terribly method, doesn't it? But I mean, like, really interested in the small physical tics they might have, and little speech patterns that you'd notice. And then when I went to art college, which I did sort of in the middle of it all, I was making these very tiny sculptures out of glass, used with recycled glass from the hot shop that the other students were using. And they were so small you could just hold one in your hand, but when you cut into it, there was this kind of universe of colour inside, all this stuff going on. So what I think I'm saying is, telling a story about something very small that has a larger echo is what interests me.
So lots of the things that you do, lots of the strings to your bow really do involve storytelling, don't they? So, you've been in lots of theatre, radio, TV, you've written plays. So yeah, do you think that's kind of the string that holds it all together? Or
such a good question.
Is there anything in particular out of all of the things that you do that you really feel is you?
I think I'm noticing a really strong relationship between radio, which I worked in for a while, as you were saying, and the writing. So radio was amazing for me. I came from a physical theatre background at the time. Was really surprised to be put up for this radio award because the person who'd put me up for it had only seen me in this physical theatre show where I did speak a bit, but there was lots of movement. And then when I went into radio, I mean, it's such an incredible medium. And one of the things that happens is you have to focus everything. You know this from doing podcasts, of course. Mm-hmm. Everything that you're doing is through the voice. So there's no costume. There's no the way you're standing, or I don't know. It's super, super focused, like a laser point, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is very relevant to this writing style that I'm doing. You're sort of looking, and also I would hope that what I'm writing down makes you picture things. It sort of what's the word? It kicks your brain into imagining those things visually.
Yeah.
And that's what radio does too, which is so nice. And I just really love the intimacy of it. It's such an incredible... I had a really lovely thing at my book event recently. A woman came who I haven't seen for years, like since 2006 or something. And I worked with her on the radio. Her name's Martha, and she worked in the Foley department, making the sounds that go with radio shows.
Oh, I bet that's a great job.
Oh my gosh. Like I was talking to her about remembering that I was in a play once where there was a dog, and she had these gloves that she'd sewn buttons onto the fingertips, and she was walking around on the floor with these button-tipped gloves to make the sound of the claws of the... Is it claws? The nails, whatever, of a dog.
Course,
so it was perfect. And that all of that attention to exactly what sounds right. And sometimes they're things that look wrong but sound right, which is fascinating too. And that happens with my observations. I will go to describe something literally and then think, it's not quite, I haven't captured it. I have to tell them that, he looked like an owl, or they won't get it. So yeah, I'm just trying to think whether there's anything else to tell you on that front, really.
But you ended up being the winner of the BBC Radio's Northern Heating Award.
Yeah.
That must have been fantastic.
Oh my gosh, it was absolutely the best. I think of it, when you do those exercises where people say, think of a time when you're really happy with something you've achieved. It's always that phone call to say that I'd won that, because it was months of process, auditions over and over again, new pieces to learn. And I felt totally underqualified, because I hadn't done anything like it before. Just going on instinct, really.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best days. Really validating. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Validating. How fantastic. And so, Miranda, you were born in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But you've lived all over the place. Can you tell me a little bit about the places you've lived and the differences?
Yeah, so Yorkshire initially, and then we moved to London and would go back every summer to Yorkshire, and then because we had friends kind of all over, and then we moved to the Netherlands for a bit, which was I just remember lots of snow, and I remember my mum, when we went shopping in the winter, she would have to put us on a sleigh around the streets, which was normal, and I thought it was amazing. And I fell in love with the combination of chips and mayonnaise. And then which is a big, wonderful thing. And then we ended up in New Jersey.
Wow, that's a big leap.
Yeah. Well, my family are there. So yeah. Most of my living family are now there. It's going to be the first time since the pandemic I'm going to get to see them soon. I'm going out there. But yeah, New Jersey and New York, kind of aunt and uncle and all of that. So I guess it was just my mum wanting to live near her brother, really. And then we came back here.
So what sort of age were you when you went to New Jersey?
It sounds funny, but it's quite murky for me. And my mum died quite a long time ago. And I feel sort of like I don't... People ask me this, and I'm like, I think I got there at 5, but I can't
quite
exactly. But I know that I came back at sort of 10 and a half.
Oh, okay. So you've lived most of your life in the UK then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge proportion of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, London is a very big place, but I'm going to ask you the 3 questions.
Yes.
So, what is great about the City of London?
So, I've written down in preparation for this, it's so big, which sounds fun, like a funny answer, doesn't it? It's so big. But what I think I love about it is that because it's so big, there is just something different around every corner. You couldn't really say London is like this. A bit like when I came to England, again from the States, and my friends would say, oh, America must be like this. And I would say, there is no America is like this, right? So it means that when you're a kid at school and you want to do something after school, you can do, if you're interested in, I don't know, I'm suddenly thinking jazz now, which isn't going to be a thing you're interested in. But, I don't know, football on a mixed team or whatever it is you want to do, you can probably find it. So I was able to find drama stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people move their kids out of London, like they think it's not a place to raise a young person, because it is, it's not the safest place in the world. And it's a complicated city, but there's just so much there. And I think that gives you a sense of anonymity. You're not... So friends of mine who grew up in really small places find wonderful advantages to those. A lot of them have gone back. But they did also say, if there was any tricky stuff happening with kids at school or whatever, everything's very small, isn't it? You don't have a different space to go to. Yeah. So I really like the anonymity of it. I would disagree with it when people say London's not friendly, because I think it really is. But I think you have to get under the surface of it. Like, we don't stop to say hello to everybody on the tube. Partly because you couldn't, could you? Yeah. But underneath, I think there's a huge warmth, and you just break through that barrier and people want to talk to each other. I think transport's amazing. I think food options are amazing. My friends recently moved to Cumbria and they love it, but then, I shouldn't say, Cumbria's wonderful. Where they happen to have moved to, they don't have the amount of restaurants available to them that they used to.
Yeah.
The museums are fantastic. The parks, galleries, You're
just never going to be bored, are you, living in London?
No, it's funny though, during the pandemic, when London was effectively shut, a lot of us did start going, what are we doing here? Because it needs to be switched on, London, to work, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to live in a city when it's all closed down, it loses all of its nature of being a city in some ways.
What was Leeds like? Was it similar? Was it just sort of closed?
Yeah, it was similar. Just everything was closed. Weird. But it was. I mean, I'm lucky because I live in an area where we're all sort of live on top of each other, really, which in some ways was fantastic. And it was great to be able to have neighbours you could speak to. You can speak to somebody just, within feet of you, really. But in other ways, until I worked from home, I did not realise how noisy my street is day to day. Because I got to go, get to go out of the house 4 days a week. But that it soon dawned on me that there are lovely aspects of community, but there are also quite
intense. Yeah, there was definitely some arguments in our street as well about a noise, because everyone's trying to work, aren't they? But other people are trying to have a barbecue. Yeah.
And then I can remember as well, there was a night when my lovely elderly neighbour, unfortunately, she died of COVID during all of this, and she was so lovely. But I remember her, remember when everybody was out on the streets clapping for the NHS, and she said to me, "Hazel, I want to come out and clap, but I never know when to stop." So I had to say to her, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come out and we'll start clapping, and then I'll wave at you and we can finish, and then we'll go in.
Oh, I love it. I understand what she means, because it's all, they keep using the word unprecedented, don't they? But it was, we didn't know what the rules were.
No, we didn't. And then there was another neighbour as well who, quite a troubled person. And she one night just took it upon herself to start shouting at all of the houses of people who weren't coming out. I was like, I don't think that's quite in the spirit of it.
Well, I had a neighbour who I liked how it made you meet other people as well. Yeah. But I remember standing on the doorstep waiting for the clapping, and a guy opposite who I'd never spoken to came across and said, "Are you all right? Do you need any help?" Because I think he thought I'd come out to find some, that was fascinating. The other thing I will mention that I love about, I love the kind of the rivers and I love the Thames and I love the River Lee. This is going back to what I love about London now.
Yeah.
Bristol's a very watery city, which I really like as well. Yeah. But yeah, I love the Thames.
The lovely old dirty old Thames.
I don't know why. It's just so broad. When you come out of this intense city with all these buildings very, very close, and then just suddenly there's all this water. It's like, yeah.
That is nice to have nearby. And if you had to choose something that is not so great about London, what would you think of?
I do not like a packed tube at all. Not fun. And I've been travelling on the tube since I was 11 because my school was in town. So I had to get on packed commuter tubes, and I just, they're loud as well. I don't think it's safe enough for women. No. And not just women, but, anyone who feels vulnerable. it depends where you are, but I mean, that's partly experiencing the world from my perspective anyway. Like, my husband will go for a jog at night round here without thinking about it, but I wouldn't.
No.
So that, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'd love it to be safer. I know in general across the world it's quite a safe city though, compared to some. It's generally a bit grimy depending on where you are, isn't it? Just a little bit. You wouldn't eat your food off the floor. You wouldn't anyway, but you know what I mean. And traffic, I think we could definitely look at. Cycle safety is getting a lot better, but that's something we need to work on. When you're in West London, which isn't I don't know it well, but there's no lights for pedestrians. You feel like a second sort of third class kind of participant of the city there. You can't seem to cross any roads. Anyway.
Yeah, so like we no longer count.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those things.
And if somebody, would you be able to tell somebody who'd been a resident of London for a long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem?
Yeah,
I've heard of.
I've got a little list. I don't know how many I'm allowed.
You can have as many as you like.
Do you know Candid Cafe in the Angel?
I do not.
It's so cool. It's a proper hippie place, sometimes the service is a bit, takes a bit of time. And it's not that necessarily the food's like amazing, but it's fine. But there's something about it because it's in the Angel where everything's just busy and loud, and then you go. If you go there, it's sort of behind the main street, up these 2 flights of stairs, really incongruous. You feel like you're probably in the wrong place. And then this kind of really bohemian mad cafe with this kind of vast naked lady painted on the back wall. And it's just I just love it. I feel like I'm in a living room in the middle of the city.
Great. I've made a note of that.
Phoenix Community Garden, which is just behind Shaftesbury Avenue, which is just so nice. I mean, it's just a little community garden, but it's beautiful. No matter where you sit, you're looking at something beautiful. You're surrounded by Shaftesbury Avenue, so you're surrounded by London. Forbidden Planet, Neal's Yard, it's all there. But if you just want a breather from all of that, go to Monmouth and get a coffee and go and sit in the Phoenix Garden. That's what I would do.
That sounds perfect.
And then the final one is Elephant Springs, which I discovered the other day. So it's behind Elephant and Castle Tube, which has been totally redeveloped. And they've made this park that's it's made of real water. Sounds so funny. And rocks. And there's like a spring and a little kind of almost tiny lake, and it goes over the rocks. And what's really wonderful about it is it's for all ages, but the kids love it. I love it.
Oh, I bet.
And what I like about it is that it's not, you could hurt yourself. It sounds funny, but it's not, it's a natural, in the middle of the city, it's this very natural environment they've created very intentionally. Yeah. And it hasn't got, a soft landing like the playgrounds have. And it's not made to look after you. You have to navigate it with some thought. Yeah. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and like a little oasis as well in the centre of the city.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, there's loads, but I don't want to go on and on.
Well, thank you so much for those, Miranda.
You're welcome.
Notes in the podcast notes that people can go and buy your wonderful book.
Oh, thank you.
What will you be doing with the rest of your day today?
So I have lots of kind of admin stuff to do, officey stuff. I'm going to do a little bit of writing, and then I really want to take my notebook and go out and just sit somewhere. I think I'm going to go and just have a coffee somewhere and just have a listen and a look around, because it's been a while. I've been doing a lot of book promotion and sort of forgetting about my material.
Yeah, so you'll need to add to your noticings.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that this afternoon.
Sounds like a great idea. Well, thank you so much for coming to speak to me, and yeah, have a lovely week.
Oh, you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Miranda was a fantastic guest, and if you'd like to buy a copy of The Year I Stopped to Notice, there are links to it in the podcast notes. The featured track on this episode is The Snow by a band originating from the south of Leeds called Astoria. Astoria describe themselves as bringing together the music of their individual record collections to create a sound with its roots set in ambience, soul and rock. This tune is pretty rocky, and I think you'll enjoy it.
What's cool in Liverpool, you'll see scintillating cities and stunning countryside. Strap in and enjoy the ride. Light on with Hazel as your
friends have gone home, there's no warmth in the night. You're a dancer in the dark, and there's no point in time where you'd rather be. Where you'd rather be. You kicked off, had a drink, and you did too much. The feeling of love, it left your head in the dust. The mess of your hair, the warmth in your eyes. To never get back on the things that you thought that you lost in time. That you lost in time. Don't go fading. Don't go waiting. And hold on to those snowy memories where you found calm in the storm. You never had anyone who put you back on your feet. You're finding it hard and you've gotta retreat to the place you called home. You called the telephone home, 'cause you've gotta get back all your mind's ever known. Leave it all. Leave it all. But when it all fell apart, you couldn't do it alone. It took a day in the snow to put your heart on a throne. All the memories made and the fortune and pains left you up in a haze of love. But leave it all. Leave it all. Oh, oh, oh. Don't go fading. Don't go waiting for me to hold